just about 7 o'clock according to my watch. And first thing we have to do are the minutes of January 17th, 2023. To approve those, is there a motion?
Move we accept them subject to modification.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. And page 4. Hearing no corrections or additions to the minutes, so those in favor of approving the minutes of January 17th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes care of that. This is time for public comment. Anyone either in the room or on Zoom, if you have an issue you'd like to talk about tonight, this is the time to do it. Anyone in the room? How about anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
No one on Zoom. So we can move right on to the next item, which is reconsideration of the water connection fee motion that we passed at the last meeting on the 17th. Eric, if you'd give us a little bit of a rundown of the issue that we have here.
Yep, the board passed a motion at its January 17th meeting to add some clarification for the process for assessing water connection fees. After discussion at the meeting, the board asked that the motion may have some clarification when referencing the state environmental protection rules to clarify the specific chapter in the motion. I consulted with the town attorney and he's prepared a revised motion for your consideration. I believe process would be a reconsideration motion would first need to be passed and then the revised motion could be taken up by the board.
Right. So for a motion to be made to be reconsidered, it has to be made by a person who voted in the majority, which is all of us. So that takes care of that problem. So once the motion is made and passed, we'll be back to the motion that was on the floor of the meeting preceding this, and then we can take up a motion to amend that has been recommended to us. So I need a motion to reconsider at this point.
Move to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And so now we're back to the motion that was on the floor, that was in the minutes that we just passed. And there is another motion that's recommended to be made in the town manager's report.
You gonna?
I move to clarify that water system connection fees are calculated using Chapter 1 of the Environmental Protection Rules for the state of Vermont, and further move that when the process or applicant applying has a use not covered by Chapter 1 of the Environmental Protection Rules, that the water system connection fee will be based on the use's estimated maximum daily demand in gallons per day that could be used by the applicant, subject to review and approval by the Williston Water Department.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now we need, or since we just amended something, we need to make a motion to adopt the motion as amended.
I'll move to adopt the motion as amended.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think we have 3 ayes.
Yes.
So that takes care of that part of the business. And now we move on to the interviews and appointments for the 2 positions that are being discussed tonight. One is for the Development Review Board, and the other one is for the Lake Iroquois Recreation District. So let's do the DRB first, and Lisa Braden Harder is here. If you'd come up to the
Absolutely.
table. The microphone doesn't amplify your voice, it just records what's going on, so
Got it.
make sure you speak loudly. So we do have your application in front of us, and we'd like to ask you to give us a brief summary of your background and why you'd like to be on the DRB.
Yeah, so my background is in business. I founded a company in the big data space, and it grew very quickly. We grew from a few employees to hundreds of employees in 4 global locations. And we took it all the way to IPO about 7 years ago. So with that background in business and in data, I think that what I would bring to the Design Review Board is an appreciation of data and how it can inform decisions. And then also, from the business side, some understanding that to make deals work, everybody has to walk away. Everybody has to have a win from the, it has to be a win-win situation and have everything come together. And sometimes that takes a lot of talking and listening and negotiating to get there. So regarding the DRB, I think we're at a very challenging time in Vermont with the housing crisis. I think that Williston is uniquely poised because of our proximity to Burlington, because of the jobs that we want to bring in here, to address the housing challenges. You know, I think that we have a community that is exclusive because of our mix of housing stock. I think that we exclude a lot of people because of the way that things have been built out, and I think this is a time to think about that and address it. You know, both so that companies that want to come here can have places for their employees to live, so our town employees and our retail workers can live here. You know, they create value in this town, but they're not able to live here. And then lastly, you know, with the racial reckoning that's gone on in the country, I think that we could be more welcoming in that way too, again, through our housing stock. So that's why I'm interested in that. You know, I think a lot of really important work has gone on here over the last 20 or 30 years with conservation. And I think that puts us in a nice position to look forward from here on how to be more inclusive.
Good, thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Just a curiosity question. Where did you start your company?
In Connecticut. But most of our customers were on the West Coast, so a lot of time in Seattle and San Francisco.
We'll let them put their money toward the East Coast. No, that's all. Thank you.
Since Jeff is not here, I'll ask his question. As happens, you know, in our various roles that we all fill within the town and community, how would you recognize a potential conflict of interest if you were serving in the DRB, and how would you address that? Yeah, I've actually had that question before because I was here with the racial equity group, but you know, I did run a public company, so I certainly learned the letter of the law on that. I don't really have any connections to businesses or anything like that, but I do understand what your question is getting at is as you have conversations with people, making sure that you're acting in an ethical way. I certainly understand that.
Further questions? I'd be looking for a motion then.
I'd move to appoint Lisa Braden?
Braden Harder.
Braden.
There you go.
To the Development Review Board for an unexpired 3-year term through June 30, 2025.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, and look forward to having you serve on the board.
Well, thank you very much. You'd have to go across the hall and listen to the.
So now we'll move on to the other candidate for appointment tonight, and that's from the Lake Iroquois Recreation District, Kim Conant, who's on Zoom. But I've asked Eric to give us a little primer on what this actually does, because it's been a long time since we've discussed this or had an appointment to make to the district. So Eric, I'd ask you to give us just a brief overview.
Sure. So the Lake Iroquois Recreation District is a separate municipality. It's made up of representation from Williston, Richmond, St. George, and Heinsberg. It's tasked with overseeing the recreation area at Lake Iroquois. So each town appoints a representative to that board as they work to manage the recreation district.
Thank you. So as it looks like Kim Conant is on Zoom for us.
Yep. Kim, I've got you as a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you'd like. I think you were unmuted, Kim, but you just muted again. There we go. Oop, you're muted again, Kim.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
We're gonna hook up a different speaker here in just a second.
There we
We
go.
can hear you
Got you
now.
now.
Can you hear us? Okay.
Can you hear us?
Take that as a no.
Just
We got a speaker coming.
turn them on. I don't know if you can plug them in. Plug them in over there. Please.
This needs to.
Yeah, where's the,
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
there?
By the way, this happens in virtual court hearings
Oh,
in Vermont.
Yeah.
A witness will disappear, the lawyer will be, and just go, and then everybody will stop. 5 minutes later, everybody.
Still not working.
We can hear you.
What is going on here?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? No.
Send a message.
Wonders of technology.
I wonder if his computer isn't muted on that level.
Can you hear me now, guys?
We can. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Still no.
We hear you good. Oh, he couldn't hear that though.
We're the same assistant speakers.
That's not.
Does that work now?
We can
Can you
hear
hear-
you. Can you hear us? No.
Oh, I lost sound and everything.
He should, I don't know if he can contact him, but he should quit the meeting and come back and like test.
Any luck now?
We can still hear you. Can you hear us?
You know, so they might be able to hear me, but
I can.
I can hear both of you, but we can't hear them.
Right.
Can you message him and let him know?
So,
Maybe the volume is real low or something too?
I can't hear you. As soon as I switched over to this, I lost the audio from the meeting. Oops, sorry. To audio, go to audio right there. Yes. Volume.
So we could also,
There.
oh, let's see.
You folks hear me now?
Yes.
I apologize for that.
You can hear us?
I can hear you fine now.
All right.
Yep. I apologize for
It's
the
okay.
problem.
But let's do this before we lose you again.
Yeah.
So we do have your
Exactly.
application in front of us, and just like to have you give us a brief summary of your background, regarding the district and why you'd like to be on the district.
All right, well, let me, just give me a little bit of background. I used to own the Conant Farm in Richmond down on the flats with my brother David. That's where we grew up. I was part of that farm for my whole life until 12 years ago. And my wife and I sold our share of the farm and moved to South Carolina for 8 years, and moved back up here 6 years ago because this is where our kids and grandkids are. As far as the district, we grew up here on BB Lane before it was called BB Lane. It was called Camp Road, and Mom and Dad built a camp here in '57, and my wife and I bought our family camp from my mom in 2000, and when we moved back from South Carolina, we tore our camp down and built a year-round house in 2019. So we've lived here full-time for the last 6 years since we moved back. We lived in our camp until we tore it down to build the house. So I've got a lot of history here on the lake, on BB Lane. We are 300 feet from the beach, and very involved in the upkeep of the road here on BB Lane from Labor Day around until Memorial Day. BB Lane is maintained by Pete Mumford, who's one of my neighbors, my son-in-law Ernie Rossi, and myself. We maintain it during the winter, but we also maintain it when the beach is closed from the main road down through. And very concerned about the beach moving forward, the LARD moving forward with our trail system here up in the woods. We've got a very, very valuable resource, recreational resource, educational resource here on Lake Iroquois and the surrounding lands that is owned by LARD. And I've known Jeff and Jack for a long time, both of them. I have met Sarah a couple times, but don't know her real well. But I've got I think a really unique handle on what goes on over here during the off season. The amount of people that are on the road and using the beach and the trail system on a daily basis with the traffic in and out of here. And I just think that, I'm very, just very concerned about the future in what happens around here, and just hope to help keep it going and improve it over the years.
Good, thank you. Questions from the board?
I actually don't have any questions.
I can ask the conflict of interest
Yeah,
question,
please
just in
do.
the fairness of asking it. Jeff Ferris usually asks everybody, how would you identify a conflict of interest? I guess as a resident of the area, I guess the potential one could arise, and how would you address a conflict of interest?
Well, I see where you're coming from with that. I am a resident of BB Lane, so there is a little bit of conflict of interest there because the LARD stops responsibility for BB Lane at the south end of the beach, and we pick up that responsibility year round. So there is that conflict, I guess, if you could call it a conflict, but it's something that we have dealt with for as long as I've been here. And I don't see it as much of a conflict as being knowledgeable about what goes on year round here. And I guess there could be a conflict, but I pretty much get along with everybody, and I think everybody should be able to use this area. And so I don't know if that answered your question the way you want it answered, but I guess that's where I come from.
Anything else? Thank you very much for your interest in doing this. If the board is willing to make a motion, we have one suggested.
I'll move to appoint Kim Conant as the town's representative to the Lake Iroquois Recreation District for an unexpired 2-year term through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Oh, wrong one. Oh, you're right, you're right.
Okay.
Sorry, got the wrong one. Check.
So what was that date again?
2024, June 30th.
June 30th, 2024.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
So you're in business, Kim, you're now
right.
on the district, and thank you for your interest in doing this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.
So, we're about 5 minutes early for the public hearing, but perhaps we can open the public hearing at this point and have Eric give a description of what we're talking about tonight, and then we'll be about on time at 7:30. So, the Williston Selectboard will hold a public hearing to receive comments on proposed changes to, no, that's the wrong, to receive comments on proposed changes to the Williston Motor Vehicle and Traffic Ordinance. Public hearing will take place on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. in the Beckett McGuire Meeting Room at Williston Town Hall, with remote participation available using the online platform Zoom. And the purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comment on proposed changes to Article 10 and the appendices A, B, C, and D of the ordinance. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric to give a description of what we're talking about tonight.
Sure, thanks, Terry. So this is some work on our motor vehicle and traffic ordinance amendments for this hearing, specifically some proposals in Article 10 relating to general parking rules, and then our appendices. So within Article 10, it's adding language, adding fire lane to an area where parking is prohibited, adding construction materials to items not allowed to be stored in the town's right-of-way, adding no overnight parking in town-owned lots with the exception of on-duty employees without permission, and then some general cleanup in Appendix A, speed limits, Appendix B, stop yield signs, Appendix C, traffic signals. Then in Appendix D, this is our no parking areas in town. There's additions on Avenue A and Avenue B, Governor Chittenden Road, and Zephyr Road.
Good, thank you. So, well, at this point, I'll open the public hearing to public comment. Is there anyone in the room who has any public comment regarding the ordinance? Don't see any hands raised here. How about online on Zoom?
Just asked, I'll just give them a moment here on Zoom.
Sure.
Nope, not seeing any public comments, Terry.
All right. Does the board have any questions while we're in public comment? Well, at this point, since there's no one either in the room or on Zoom who wishes to make a public comment, this would be a time for a motion for closing the public hearing.
Move we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now we're on to the ordinance amendments and following the public hearing, considering adopting the amendments. We have Bruce Hoare in the room as well, if we have any questions regarding the amendments. So we've discussed this at least twice before at our meetings. Any questions from the board?
I don't have any at this point.
Then we do have a motion suggested for this as well.
Move to adopt amendments to the motor vehicle and traffic ordinance as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Moving right along to the Public Works Standard Specifications update, and Eric and Bruce are here both to discuss this. So Eric, you want to start?
Yep, so the Department of Public Works has prepared amendments to our standard specifications for the board's consideration. These are a policy of the Select Board. This update was initiated by Public Works Department to align the specifications to the newly adopted form-based code in Taft Corners. You see this is referenced as part of the amendments. The department's prepared a summary sheet of additional amendments they've suggested while they were reviewing the entire document to include these items for the form-based code. I think Bruce will walk through these for the board. We also have the document online of the complete language for the specification, should the board wants to pull it up at all. Bruce will provide an overview, answer any questions the board has, and you could consider adopting these as presented this evening or ask staff for additional work to come back.
Good, thank you, Bruce.
Okay, it's just basically what Eric said. The biggest changes are adding the form-based code, street details to public works specifications. And then we also just went through the whole document to make sure, to clean it up for a few things, make a few things a little bit clearer. Protection and repair of existing utilities. All we did was add a little language there that just said, reminded people that they have to contact us because we're not a member of DigSafe. Believe it or not, we even have big utility companies in town that we still catch getting ready to do work, and it's like, what do you mean we gotta call you? Well, we didn't just get started here. Anyway, another one's just, some language to, for the repair of existing utilities. One of the things is working outside the property limits within the right-of-way. We're just making sure that people understand we can give them permission to work within our right-of-way, but not outside the right-of-way, so they've got to have easements and show that they have those easements before they do that kind of work. Our water distribution systems, we're just making sure that the language is clear in there, that nobody turns our valves or messes with any of our water system we're the only ones that can do that. We did increase the town engineering fees. Those are the fees that we get once a plan starts in the planning and zoning process, so that we can use that money to have plans reviewed by an outside source if we need to. And then if we end up doing inspections on the project, the fees come from this money. We're just telling people now that we're trying to join the 21st century here and get digital drawings as well. Wastewater pump stations, just cleaning up some language there about what kind of controllers and stuff to have. Fire hydrants and branch connections. The biggest thing we didn't have in our public works spec was hydrants are color coded by the gallons per minute that they can put out. We just put in there what those colors are so that they know what they've got to be painted. Stormwater drainage systems, just some general language, mostly just saying that all this stuff is really just from the state permits. Little language about culverts. And that's really we've increased the diameter of new trees from 2 inch to 2.5 inch. Most of the grants we get, you gotta have a minimum of 2.5 inch anyway, so may as well just put it right in there. One of the things we didn't have in our specs was solar powered street lights. Really like to start seeing those, to get away from paying electric bills. And then the rest of it literally is dealing with a new form-based code and putting their details in the specification, and removed one of them, which is the grid street detail, because the form-based code basically takes care of that detail at this point. And that's it.
Thank you, Bruce. Questions from the board regarding the specs?
I never knew there were color codes for how much water comes out of a fire hydrant.
Yeah, there's 4 different ones.
I've lived 58 years without knowing that, I'm wondering how.
If I wasn't in this line of work, I wouldn't know any of that. So, but it's more to help the fire department, obviously, when they show up, they know what kind of water they expect to get. So, including showing some of them, and I actually think it's red, I don't remember them right off the top of my head, we'll show them that even though the hydrant's there, it's not really there for fire protection. It's at the end of the line so we can flush the line or things like that. So,
I'm gonna judge fire hydrants now when I walk by them.
Any other questions for Bruce?
No.
We do have a motion suggested for this as well.
Move to approve amendments to the Public Works Standard specifications as presented.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
aye.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
So now we're up to the draft animal trapping policy overview. Eric and Simon Miles will lead us off with this, and so we can understand what we're dealing with. Although we have seen this for some time.
Yes, this was an item after some initial discussion in late 2021 by the board, after some residents brought forth a petition looking to, for the town to think about a position on town-owned property and animal trapping to develop a policy. The board directed the Conservation Commission to draft a policy for consideration. The Conservation Commission worked on this off and on over the past year. Simon, our conservation planner, has assisted them as he stepped into the role over last summer. Worked with town staff to review the policy as well. They've transmitted it for the board's initial read this evening. And Simon can walk through his memo he's prepared for you and kind of what the draft looks like. Looking for the board's initial feedback on this evening. We can do any additional staff work or answer additional questions the board has, and potentially bring this back to you for an action item at a future meeting here.
Yeah, thank you. Simon, would like to
Yes. So as Eric mentioned, it was spurred by this petition the town received in 2021. The Vermont state law doesn't allow us to enact an ordinance that sort of directly bans or trapping or regulates the type of traps used. That's all regulated by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. However, landowner permission is required to trap on someone else's land per Vermont state law. So we have drafted this policy which sets out the circumstances in which the town will and won't grant permission to trap on our land, and also provides guidance on how that trapping should be carried out if we do decide to approve it. So probably the key thing from the policy is that we will only grant permission to trap on our land for essential purposes. So that's 3 things really: to manage a threat to public safety, to manage a threat to our infrastructure or town property that can't be otherwise addressed, and in some rare cases we may choose to grant it for research purposes. So those are the 3 reasons. Any other reasons the town would not grant landowner permission. So what this does is, we did get a lot of feedback on this to the Conservation Commission, and this sort of definition of essential aligns with resident feedback that we received at those meetings. Essentially, it does restrict to those essential purposes and doesn't allow it for things like recreation or gaining fur or meat or whatever the case may be. The second thing that the policy does is it sets out that we will expect anyone trapping on our land to follow best practice of the associations of fish and wildlife agencies. So they provided some guidance on the types of traps that should be used, having regard to things like the welfare of the animals, the sensitivity to make sure it traps the type of animal it's seeking to trap and not another one, the efficiency and the safety of the trapper, as well as providing guidance on preparation and maintenance and how to locate traps. We'll also be requiring the traps to provide us with their license and to advise us if they do capture any non-target species. The town doesn't do a great deal of trapping, but when it does, it's generally trapping for beavers. So one of the things that the policy does is provide guidance for things like when we're designing trails, to sort of try and avoid those beaver-human conflicts, and also provides other guidance for sort of resolving them in non-emergency situations, like the use of beaver paint or exclusion devices. The last thing it does is deal with public safety. So on those on that town-owned land where there is some sort of recreational use, our country parks or our parks where there is sort of less formal recreational use, like Brownell Mountain, where there may be conflict with pedestrians and dogs, it does require that we provide signage advising people to stay on the trails. In the case of the town right-of-way, where there are no trails, and so those sort of conflicts are less likely, that requirement to sign does not apply. So that was included sort of in response to feedback from DPW that we do need to make sure we can continue to trap. They have experienced traps being stolen from the right-of-way in the past when they were signed, and it's important that we maintain our sort of relationship with licensed trappers, that they can contract with us on short notice to deal with critical emergencies. The last thing I just want to make a point is a slight update to my memo. I had a conversation with a resident this afternoon just about section 3C, which deals with the signage. On reading it back, I think that section could be worded slightly better to avoid any confusion about the town permitting trapping on some parcels and not others. So in the final version, we will be revising that just to simplify it, remove reference to posting and just list out those parcels where we will be signing. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Questions from the board?
Actually, my only question was about that specific
Right.
thing. So, yeah, no, if all of the properties are going to be included, that was, yeah.
Yes, I think that would benefit from simplifying, because I can see how someone might read that and take the wrong message from it.
Good job.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Yes, Tony?
Over the last few years of being involved with public campaigns and being out speaking to residents of Williston, very few topics have had such universal support as this. Almost to a person, I had never heard any dissent from moving forward with this. It's always a little dangerous to set a precedent, but in this case, I think it absolutely unequivocally makes sense, especially the fact that this does not cost taxpayers a single dollar to do it. So I just wanted to share that sentiment.
Good, thank you. Anyone on Zoom who has any questions or comments?
Yep, I have a hand raised on Zoom.
Yeah.
Looks like Carmela, I'll connect you. And if you just want to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, again.
Okay, great. Yeah, the only thing I want to do is reiterate that these traps are definitely, the way they're doing it now anyway, without regulation, I guess, or much of it, but is a public safety issue because you have children, you have vulnerable adults, and of course pets that could stumble across these. I'm not sure where they're set, but I did hear about the dog that lost its life because of this. So I just wanted to put my words of support out there and reiterate, I believe it's a public safety issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess the question for us tonight is, do we wish to proceed?
Sorry, Terry, there's one more in the
Oh,
audience,
okay.
or a couple more.
My name is Beth Volker. I do currently reside in Essex Junction. I moved there in 2019 because I couldn't find the house I wanted in Williston, but previous to that I spent 37 years here in Williston, and I love this community, and I do want to say congratulations on taking this step. It doesn't go as far as I'd like it to go, but I think you're probably the only town in the state who has even taken a baby step towards this. For the sake of transparency, I do want to say that I'm against trapping in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a form of torture, but that's not for discussion tonight. But I do want to mention specifically on beavers. Sometimes the first thing we go to is destroying them and getting rid of them. There are other resources in this state. I'm a wildlife transporter, so I transport injured wildlife from the point of injury to the correct rehabber. So I am involved in that community, so you need to know that. But there is a gentleman, his name is, and I don't know if you're aware of him or not, Skip Lyle, Lisle, and he runs a company called Beaver Deceivers. He has all sorts of humane ways of discouraging them from being where you don't want them. And I think the first step should always be to take the humane way first. And the other thing is, if you're going to trap a nuisance animal, why trap it and torture it? Shoot it. There are different ways of getting rid of it, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But I do think that Williston is taking a tremendous step forward that I wish other communities would follow. So any way that I can support this, even not being a Williston resident right now, I would like to. But thank you for letting me comment tonight.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Bob Galvin. I'm a resident of Richmond. Oh yeah, sorry. Hello, my name's Bob Galvin. I'm a resident of Richmond, and I just wanted to say a few words in support of this policy. I am a former ornithologist and an amateur bird watcher, so just wanted to speak a little bit about these traps and their indiscriminate killing of wildlife, including birds. Within the last few years, there have been several species of birds who have been caught in these sorts of traps. Great blue herons, barred owls, screech owls, crows are just a few of the species who have been caught in traps that were not meant to catch these birds. And so yeah, just wanted to provide that perspective and say, yeah, thank you very much for introducing this policy.
Yep, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else on Zoom?
Yep, one more hand on Zoom. Peggy Larson, I'm going to connect you.
Unmute here.
Yep. Hi, Peggy, we can hear you.
Yes. Hi, Eric, and hi, Terry. As you folks know, I'm a veterinarian, and I've treated these animals that have been caught in traps. And I think we should never forget about the amount of pain that these animals go through. This has to always be an underlying factor when we make these decisions, and I'm very happy that Williston is moving forward. The other thing is, like the previous gentleman just said, traps are so indiscriminate. You just never know which species you're going to trap. But the science behind the pain and the fear in animals is very identical to the pain and fear in humans. I've seen autopsies of human brains. My ex-husband is a neurologist. And the amygdala is the pain center. The prefrontal cortex and the hypothalamus are the prefrontal cortex and the hypothalamus are the pain centers. The amygdala is the fear center. So I think as we move forward on this, we have to always remember what pain that these animals experience, sometimes for hours at a time, sometimes days. And I treated a cat that was in a trap. I must have been in there 4 or 5 days, totally dehydrated, couldn't save her. So I'm happy to see that Williston is moving forward, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood what the animals go through from a veterinarian's point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more hand, Terry.
Okay.
Jay Petrillo, I'm going to connect you right now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, most of this is anecdotal, and I don't know if you remember back in 1984 in North Williston, there was a nasty Amtrak accident where 5 people were killed, and the result of that derailment was due to beaver dams. And many states rely on best practices, which in addition to a flow device, which is Skip Lyle, the beaver deceiver, they also allow trapping. And in Massachusetts, where they banned trapping, the beaver population doubled, as well as quadrupled the amount of people complaining about beavers. And trapping has been around for centuries. And many people, it's a culture, many people appreciate the meat. The meat is very flavorful. The meat is highly nutritious. So the idea of picking on the beavers, as well as to Peggy Larson, if you read David Foster Wallace's Consider the Lobster, lobsters feel pain when they're tossed in a pot. So in terms of a metric for measuring pain, I mean, a fish feels pain when you pull it out on a line. So I think trapping, we need to appreciate the culture of trapping. And the people that do trap, they follow the guidelines. Those that do follow the guidelines, you need to be registered, you need to be licensed, you need to have training. So to completely, blatantly ban it using just a sort of an emotional outcry, I think is just wrong, because you're completely disregarding the culture that appreciates trapping. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. You should know that the policy we're looking at would only ban trapping on Williston-owned lands, not anything else in the town.
Thank you.
Any further comments on Zoom?
No one on Zoom, Terry.
Okay, anything else from folks in the, yes, Tony?
With all due respect to Mr. Petrillo, I've yet to see a Labrador Retriever, Golden Retriever's legs severed in a lobster trap.
Any further comments? So our job tonight is to see whether we want to proceed with this, and if we do, we will be sending this to legal for review and action at a future meeting. Any objections to moving forward with it?
No, I think it's really well balanced, and it does say that trapping could be done for essential purposes, including the protection of property and public safety. So.
Right. So we will proceed with the adoption or getting a policy so that we can take a look at it to adopt, and move on then to the Mud Pond Conservation Area Management Plan Amendment. And Simon, I'm glad you're staying right there. This is something that you've been working on. So Eric first, and then Simon.
Sure. So another item, the Conservation Commission has recommended an amendment to the Mud Pond Conservation Area Management Plan. This would allow cycling on a small section of trail between the parking lot and the road crossing to the Mud Pond Country Park. So remember, in the area we have a conservation area and we have a country park area that are adjacent to each other. This is being referred to as the Quiet Connector in the amended plan proposal the board has before it this evening. We've included in the agenda a red line copy of the management plan for the area with the proposed changes and accompanying public comment and stakeholder comment, along with a memo that Simon's prepared. The potential action for the board this evening, you could consider amending the plan as presented. Simon can answer any additional questions and kind of outline process for the board and help get to this point this evening.
Good, thank you. So Simon, you want to talk a little bit about the proposed
sure.
changes?
I think Eric's pretty much summarised the change to the management plan. But I just wanted to just a moment on why we're doing this. So you probably know that the country park has mountain bike trails managed by Fellowship of the Wheel. The conservation area is used for more passive recreation and wildlife management. So the Conservation Commission has been discussing with Fellowship of the Wheel a trail project to try and get bikers safely from the parking lot into the country park. At the moment you have to park at Mud Pond Road and then you cycle down South Road to get into the country park. which is not a great stretch of road. It's pretty quick, visibility is not great, and we've received feedback that people feel pretty vulnerable using that section of road. So the second thing you probably may recall that the Conservation Commission spent a lot of time looking for a parking lot on the Country Park side of the road about 3 or 4 years ago, and essentially because of the natural resources and the constraints over there, it wasn't deemed feasible. And then lastly, Fellowship of the Wheel are actually sort of halfway through a project in the country park now to make the trails suitable for adaptive riders. So these are people who are, you know, on different types of bicycles, or they might be on a regular bike, and involves widening the trail bridges and making changes to the banking, all of which is sort of focused thought on how to get people safely from the parking lot to the country park. So this does involve, this sort of would involve a trail project for that small section of trail in the conservation area. Important to note that this is not, we're not creating a bike trail here, we're creating a trail that will benefit all users. And a good, you know, we will have trail structures that will get at people over sort of wet areas if they're walking or if they're on a bike. Those of you who know the conservation area will know when you come off the parking lot, there's sort of a steep hill that you basically just, you go up and down. So we're going to reroute around that. That benefits people who are less sort of, pedestrians who are less able on their feet. I know there's a number of birders out there who will benefit from easier access down to the pond. But we're also mindful of maintaining the character of the conservation area. The Conservation Commission do feel that this is something that can be integrated on this small section of trail with the values of the conservation area, but we're going to be careful to make sure that we maintain pedestrian priority through a careful program of sort of signage on the trail, messaging to Fellowship of the Wheels user base, and sort of clear delineation that cycling is restricted to the quiet connector only. And then lastly, that sort of all leads us back to the management plan, which at the moment doesn't allow cycling, so we do need to update that to let this trail project proceed, and to, you know, start applying for grants in order to fund it. We've done quite a lot of consultation on this. We did have a site walk with local residents and interested parties. And then we've also, I think it's been 3 Conservation Commission meetings where we discussed a lot of the details and thought carefully about how we were going to integrate this new use into the conservation area.
Questions? Our local resident expert is not here tonight, Jeff, who would probably have some questions, but he didn't indicate any questions on email to us. So if there's no questions, and there is a motion suggested.
I'll move to amend the Mud Pond Conservation Area Management Plan as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
So, moving to the Catamount Community Forest Stewardship Fund request. And Eric and Simon, you're both on again.
Yep, so stacking some of these items this evening. So we've got a request before the board this evening from the Catamount Community Management Committee, as requesting use of $3,000 from the Stewardship Fund established for the community forest that was put in place when the town acquired the forest. The board adopted a policy for how to utilize those funds, and it involves a request either from the committee or members of the public. You have before you a request from the committee for $3,000 to use for invasive plant management coming up this year. This would be something you'll be hearing about in the coming months, is some forest management logging to occur on the property later this summer into the fall. Simon's working on that in the details right now, but the concept here is using some of this money from the stewardship fund. We could replenish it with some dollars from the revenue from that timber harvest as well to replenish those. So, Simon? time in any other.
I think that covers everything. Yeah.
You had your opportunity to do the hat trick tonight, 3 in a row. So. Any questions regarding the proposal? Then there is a motion.
Move to allocate $3,000 from the Catamount Community Forest Stewardship Fund to invasive plant management per the recommendation of the Forest Management Committee.
Is there a second?
Second?
Is there discussion on the motion? There is none, so all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Manager's report.
Highlight a few things from my written report this evening. Pleased to announce the promotion of Anthony Szymanskis to fire lieutenant. I think Tony served on the department for many years, and he's been a great member, and really pleased to support him in moving forward to this achievement of rank of lieutenant. He's, you may recall, Lieutenant Sean Soper retired at the end of last year, and this culminated the promotion process. So Tony stepped into that role a couple weeks ago, so we're excited to support him in his new leadership role in the department. We've been hiring a few people, which has been great to fill some open positions here. We've hired Evan Tinker to join our highway department as an equipment operator, Christy Moore as fire department administrative assistant. She'll start in a couple weeks. And Ashley Lazat, she was a dispatcher working for us part-time after full-time, and then she's stepped in to fill our new administrative assistant and records clerk role, and she's also a backup dispatcher for us as well. She's been in that role just about 2 weeks now, I believe. So that's gone well to fill some open positions we have here. Just a couple we're working to fill right now. So knock on wood, we'll hopefully move those along. Some other news, you might recall we have a grant from V-Trans for a micro-transit study that's looking for public transit that's more of kind of an on-demand ride-share model with kind of a van and perhaps an app that if you needed a ride from the village down to Taft Corners, you could request it and get picked up and brought down there. So we'll be doing a study with a consultant on that. I think we just signed a contract the other day, so I'll start in the next few weeks. Melinda Scott will be managing that on the town's behalf. You might see, and I can send it around to the board, there's an article in VT Digger over the weekend about Windsor, Vermont is running a similar, they're running a pilot program for microtransit, and they're using some federal and state grant funds to get this off the ground. So my hope is if this feasibility shows us that there is a real application here, which we're anticipating there will be, that we might be able to explore some potential grant money for pilot and seeding an initiative like this to really work with some of those connectivity items for additional transit options in the town. That's more of this kind of on-demand tailored as opposed to kind of a fixed route model. So it's something I know the state is very interested in and looking at applications in towns. And I think the way we were set up in Williston, I think it could be a good potential model for us moving forward. So more to come on that. So working with our engagement consultant on what that's going to look like for community outreach. Plans still to launch around town on night before town meeting or at town meeting in the auditorium for people as they're entering to learn about the project. I met with our consultant the other day, Greta, so we got a couple ideas for next meeting as well. But plans to kind of shore up that plan at the next meeting, launch it, and then gather that community feedback the next couple of months. The architect's been working with some civil engineering consultants on the library assessment. We should have that back pretty soon. We've also had a library specialist working with Director Jane Carnes on looking at the needs of the library. You think about things like how the collection will grow over time and the square footage need for that, accessibility. There's a lot of accessibility challenges with the collection right now. And then just really coming down to space was a key theme in our last meeting, just needing more space in town for activities and meetings and everything. So anything else you want to add, Greta?
No, that was perfect.
So that'll keep moving forward here. I had it in my column in the paper a couple weeks ago, but we kind of finalized we're calling manager chats for anyone that wants to chat about the budget proposal. Or if has any questions about how local government works in town, I've set up some dates over the next, between now and town meeting to, I'll be in here a couple evenings, I'll be in the library during lunchtime after some story time events that a lot of people tend to go to. I've set up a couple Zoom options for folks who might want a virtual option, just email me for the link. And give people an opportunity to chat about anything with local government, chat about the budget before town meeting. So we're gonna get the word out on that. We've got it on the website and social media as of today. Also work to try to get out to a couple communities to kind of bring that conversation to them as well over the next few weeks as early voting will start, Sarah Mason tells me, I think about February 15th, 20 days before town meeting. So we'll have ballots in right around then. So we're trying to make sure the community has all the information ahead of time as they consider their votes for town meeting. But that's all I have this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Any other business for tonight?
Oh, quick meeting.
Then I will say we're adjourned.
This is the shortest.